We'd like to give a special shout out to the following people for making this episode and the rest of Act 3 possible: Louis, Malaya, Reg, Daniel Athern, Osterkim, Vanna, Finch, Dr. Dan Venning, Sleepless Berry, Court, Rogue Canoe, John and Muna, Sadie, Zay the Great, Elliot Kane, and Trident. Thank you for your support. Maraming salamat. You're listening to Hainay by Motsi Dapol. Episode 84, Alingawngaw, Part 2.
My friends kept asking for evidence, and I kept saying no. Thing is, I could hear the sounds at night. I could hear something moving in the hallways. I could hear something tapping at the window. If my neighbors hadn't warned me, I probably would have looked already. But I didn't. I was too scared. I think that's what kept me safe. Until one night when my phone rang and I saw that Mr. L was giving me a call. I told him he could call me anytime he needed help, and he assured me he never would. He was an adult, after all. So I convinced him that it was for my peace of mind, which it kind of was, but you know. He never called me for anything. I wasn't sure it was real at first. But when I got him on the phone, he sounded... Well, he sounded terrified. He kept saying something like, "I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have done it." It was 2 a.m., and I am ashamed to say that I was too scared to leave my apartment, what with all the warnings. But Mr. L needed me, so I went. With my heavy-duty flashlight that doubled as a blunt weapon if needed, of course. I found him in a room I'd never seen the inside of, but I recognized anyway. A spare room with a window, old furniture covered in cloth, stuff on the walls from a teenage girl that he had never bothered taking down. And I helped Mr. L up, and he kept muttering a name to himself until he finally noticed me. And when I asked him what happened, he said he needed to see. After everything that had happened, after all the hauntings started getting worse, he needed to see what his daughter saw. And he did. The boy on the ceiling. He saw him reaching out. His daughter didn't know the boy. And he did. He said he knew the boy's parents, who didn't care much what their son was doing before he died. He said he knew the boy's best friend, whose nan took better care of him than his parents did. They were attached at the hip, those boys, always running around together, back when that was all kids could do to keep themselves entertained. And he died in the fire. The old house that was a ruin since he was a young man burned down a second time, though they never learned how or why. The Morgan boy, he said. Useless parents. Got into trouble all the damn time, popular with the other kids, whereas his best friend, the boy, was a good kid who could do no wrong. A strange pair, to be sure, but Mr. L said the boy and his nan were probably the only reason the Morgan kid didn't run with the bad crowd. Even if, in the end, that didn't stop him from getting into trouble one last time. They suspected he started the fire somehow, because nothing else in the house could have ignited it. The kid escaped by a hair, not just a turn of phrase, since apparently the fire burned off some of his hair. But the Morgan boy never got out that night. He died in that fire, confirmed by police and firefighters when they finally put that blaze out before it could touch the neighbors. But what Mr. L couldn't figure out, however, is what the damn Morgan kid was doing on the goddamn ceiling. His words. If that was his ghost and not just some kind of hallucination, how did he end up on the ceiling? What was he reaching for? After that night, I joined Mr. L chatting with the other residents about whether they ever saw anything from the rare but increasing haunts in the building. They talked about the other resident, their neighbor that saw the kid in the ceiling, who did everything he could to bless his apartment, but who moved out just about a year after Mr. L's daughter did. They got him on the phone, and he said it might have been the boy Mr. L remembered, but that wasn't really his concern when it happened to him. The neighbor, instead, warned Mr. L that he'd get it worse than everyone else now that they knew he could see them. He spent a year trying to figure out a way to get rid of the damn nightmare ghosts, but in the end, he couldn't take the sleepless nights and found another place a year later. Thankfully, the nightmares didn't come with him. I was terrified for Mr. L. I know his daughter wanted him to move out, and I know it was probably for the best, but he was so stubborn. And I was worried that he would stay there until the hauntings got to be too much. I wanted to find someone that could help figure out what was going on, maybe even help exorcise the ghosts. So a few people gave me different answers. One suggested this ghost hunting group from YouTube, but said they'd only investigate if I had proof. Another said I should call into your show and ask for help because you had connections or something. And another said if it got too bad, help would come. I just had to have faith. Not helpful. At least not at first. I ended up coming back to that later, after the incident, because it turned out they knew way more about what I was going through than the rest. But I did what I thought would work, and I decided to call into your show until I heard the episode with the grandpa, and I chickened out and decided to hold off for a week or two. But I guess that was a mistake. Because I finally decided to get some evidence. My friends were real excited about it, but I didn't want to break the rules while doing it, so I told them they could help me out, and they agreed. The first night, I asked one of them to record my room after midnight on this old handheld digicam with the night vision on. It was pretty creepy, but I told her I wouldn't be looking up no matter what I heard, so she better get some good footage. And the next thing I knew, I heard someone screaming. And my friend was shaking me awake and telling me she saw him. She saw the ghost. And she caught it on video. Or she thought she did. Unfortunately, when we ran it back, of course, the video was corrupted. I've since learned that ghosts don't play well with digital, but my friend really wanted to get that footage, so she stuck around the second night to get the video. It also didn't work. But she didn't shake me awake that time. That time, I woke up from my phone ringing from my headboard. My friend was gone, but, she was okay. She left. Left without saying goodbye, left without telling me. Camera on the floor, like it had been dropped unceremoniously. My bedroom door just wide open. When I answered the phone, I finally understood why. She sounded like she'd been crying when I got her on the phone. She asked me if I was okay, and I said I was fine. It was just about 2 a.m., and she'd apparently been calling me the entire time, and her nerves were frayed, waiting for me to answer. I checked the footage while she calmed down and found it completely corrupted, just like before. I asked her what happened, and she apologized over and over. Said she shouldn't have pushed it. Said it was real, and she didn't need to make a stupid video to prove that. She and I are in the same group now, by the way. It really shook her. I understood eventually, but that night, I was just worried about her. She told me what she saw that night. The thing is, the first night, she seemed excited by the whole thing, even if she was getting creeped out by the ghost boy on the ceiling. So she was invested in getting footage because she'd never seen any kind of haunting as clear as this one, even if we both spent a lot of time watching those moving furniture real ghost videos all over the internet. But the second night, she told me when she heard the telltale blunt knocking sounds from my ceiling, she focused the night vision on the spot she remembered the ghost reaching from, hoping that she'd get a clear shot this time. And she did. Right there on the camera, head, neck, shoulders, chest, all melted out of the ceiling before the figure began to reach down, arms just barely long enough not to touch me while I was asleep in bed. Same as the first night. But then, her hand slipped. She almost dropped the camera in her excitement. She was fully focused on what it looked like in the shot, hoping she'd be able to preserve the moment, that she didn't realize the figure had moved. Until she saw his eyes staring right into the camera. Right into her eyes. And she looked up, and his upside-down smile was right in front of her face. His eyes stared right into hers, and he reached for her just like he'd been reaching for me. So she dropped the camera and ran. He didn't follow her out of my room, but his eyes and smile did, even as she rushed out the front door. It was blessedly closed, though she did say she slammed it on her way out. And she couldn't get the image of that upside-down smile out of her head. She was grateful that I was safe, but she could not come back. The ghost, the kid, he saw her. He saw her looking at him. He tried to touch her, but she ran before he could. And she didn't know what would happen if he touched her. Mr. L was at my door the next day, asking me if I was all right. He looked tired. Told me he was staying up until 2 a.m., waiting for the hour to pass before he went to bed, sat in his kitchen sipping coffee and watching television until he could no longer hear something knocking on the ceiling in his room. And I told him what happened, and he told me I ought to let some experts handle this. I didn't know if any of the experts I found online were actually reliable, but he said he planned to get in touch with the other kid, the kid, about all this, since he said anyone in the neighborhood could call him if they had an emergency that they couldn't go to the police for. I didn't know how helpful he would be, but if it was true that he knew the ghost... Anyway. I told Mr. L what happened to my friend. I told him about the video being corrupted, so I couldn't even see what my friend saw. He told me I ought not to. because it might be the reason it left me alone until now. But he also gave me an idea. When he said it made sense that the ghost couldn't be caught on the digicam if the camera didn't exist when he was alive. I don't know if that's actually how it worked, but it got me thinking about whether I might be able to get some evidence on something that wasn't digital, you know? So, I borrowed a friend's Polaroid camera, and I rigged it to take a couple photos around 1 a.m. I figured, hey, if I can get through an entire 2 nights of confirmed hauntings totally asleep and oblivious, maybe I could get some evidence the same way. It was a good idea. It... Well, it worked. But that is why I regret doing it. The next day I woke up, checked the camera, and there he was, in the photograph. Real, undeniable proof of the boy standing on my ceiling. But what chilled me to the bone wasn't the fact that I could see him. It wasn't the fact that he was real, because I already believed he was. From Mr. L, from his daughter, from my friend. It was the fact that he was looking right at me. Smiling, his upside-down smile. Like the boy knew that I could finally see him. And for the first time since I moved in, I looked at my window and I saw these black soot handprints on the glass. But this time, they were inside. I told Mr. L what happened, showed him the photos. I didn't want to show anyone else, but he seemed to understand why I was afraid. Said he called the guy, told him about what was happening, and he was coming right over, he said. And while I waited in Mr. L's kitchen with his strongest coffee, I asked if the ghost boy ever, touched him. Because he always seemed to be reaching out. And Mr. L shuddered at the question and said yes, that's why he stopped sleeping before too. He didn't want a repeat of how that felt. I was glad he was okay, but when I asked him to describe what it felt like, he said it felt like a taste of dying. He corrected himself, right afterwards, trying to find the words. He said it felt like a taste of being dead, not dying. He figured dying would be painful one way or another, but being dead? You weren't supposed to feel anything after you were dead, because the things you would feel would be hell on earth. He said the night after he saw the boy, he went to sleep in his own bed, thinking that he'd be safe, since he saw him in his daughter's old bedroom, not his own. He was wrong, of course. He felt the touch of an ashen hand on his arm, and the gritty sensation of smoke-dried dead skin, and then he felt insects crawling all over him. He didn't want to open his eyes at first, didn't want to move, but the insects got to be too much, and when he smacked one out of instinct, his hand came back bloody. The blood-filled insects that he'd seen in passing were all over him now, and the boy was grinning because his lips had burned away, and his eyes were gone from the sockets, boiled in the sockets till they popped. And he didn't want to experience that again. He needed it all to stop. I asked if he'd ever move out, like his daughter insisted, and all he could say was that the boy could fix it. He had to. I stayed with him that night, and this person he kept talking about, the kid, he came. I was surprised for a moment, but only because I'd forgotten that I'd already met the man who survived the fire in the 90s, the guy with the cat in his pocket. And he had the cat with him that night, on his shoulder, as he walked into the room. And he gave Mr. L like a firm and friendly handshake, apologizing for not coming sooner. And Mr. L assured him that nobody would have troubled him for it if it wasn't life or death. But he didn't know until recently how close the man was to the whole thing, until he recognized the ghost on the ceiling. He seemed to recognize me from our one meeting, and Mr. L explained what I had seen. And when I handed him the photo, I can't explain the look in his eyes when he stared at it. I can't imagine how that felt, seeing someone long dead, someone you loved, just smiling at you like that. Like, wrong. He didn't seem surprised by any of it, though. Like, nothing about the situation was new to him. He sat in the kitchen with us until midnight, and I asked him what he did for a living, that he was out here answering ghost-busting calls, and he said he worked in homicide, which made sense. He was a detective, and tasked with dealing with cases that made no sense, until very recently. He told me it was much more daunting going back when they didn't quite understand what was going on. But now that the answers were a lot clearer, he didn't feel powerless anymore. Now, he could do something about the horrific things he'd had to face for years. After midnight came and went, he asked us both to wait in the kitchen while he did his work. I know it doesn't make for good storytelling, but I listened. Me and Mr. L sat in that kitchen while he walked into his daughter's bedroom and shut the door behind him, cat still on his shoulder. And I was too afraid about what would happen if I looked, and if he saw me again. I heard the dull thuds and creaks from something moving on the ceiling. I heard a sound that raised the hairs on my arm, this loud skittering of bugs. And then I heard something that didn't make much sense. The sound of something heavy hitting the floor. A hauntingly inhuman sound, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like groans emanating from multiple mouths, but from the same body. And the yowling of a cat. I could hear the man talking, but I couldn't make out his words. It's hard to explain how it felt in the moment, but it was like something was pulling me to the door before I even noticed I was moving. I vaguely remember Mr. L asking me to sit back down, but I walked over to the closed door wanting to hear what he was saying behind it, wanting to know what was going on. I opened the door, just for a moment. And then I passed out. When I woke up, I was lying on the couch, and it was morning. Mr. L berated me as soon as I opened my eyes, told me I was an idiot for interrupting Mr. while he was working. He seemed well rested, more so than usual, and when I asked what happened, he just said it was all resolved. Said the man fixed it, like he'd promised, though they'd only know for sure when midnight came again. I stayed awake until then, listening for the familiar sounds coming from above at 1 a.m., but they never came. He kept his promise, and even Mr. L didn't quite know how. He explained what happened at the meeting, and the others said they didn't hear anything anymore after dark. Not from the ceiling, not from the hallway, and the cheery mood was, palpable, and everyone came out to the front for a picnic on the lawn. And I was relieved, of course. I was so relieved that I didn't realize until later that I didn't have the photo anymore. I figured he must have taken it with him when he left. Well, that's kind of the end of the story. But there's a part of it that I don't know if I should include. I went looking for answers and found the group I mentioned, and they recognized a lot of the elements in my story, even if not all of them. And I told them about the dream that I'd had the night when the detective showed up. Okay, so when I passed out, I had this dream that was so vivid I can remember every detail. I remember a monster that made no sense. Flesh and fur, eyes and teeth, yellow, blue, black. It made the noise I heard through the door, groans from many mouths, and the sounds of a strange cat that were wrong. And I saw the kid from the photo, but he was wrong too. Burnt, boiled skin, a rictus smile from the flesh that had peeled from his mouth. I saw the man, the detective, standing there, but I couldn't see his face. He was turned away from me, all his attention on the boy, who reached out to him with an enormous, grotesque, burnt-out smile. The monster moved between them, and in the blink of an eye, there was no monster anymore. Just a boy. An ordinary boy, taking the burnt one's hands and pulling him into a hug. And for a second, I felt relieved, though I didn't understand what I was seeing. It was like all was right with the world. They hugged tight and tighter and tighter until they couldn't pull away. Their skin had fused together. The burnt boy kept smiling, and they kept embracing and melting together until you couldn't see where one ended and the other began. And then, at the end of it, there was just the boy. The ordinary boy, standing there alone, holding his hands to his heart. Him and the detective who watched it all happen, though I still couldn't see his face. He put his hand on the boy's head, running his fingers through his thick, fluffy hair. And then there was no boy at all. Where there was a boy, there was only a cat. The same cat he let me play with when we first met. But she seemed bigger. I don't know why that stuck with me when the rest of the dream was so much more insane. Maybe because the cat was one of the few things I knew to be real, so the dissonance stuck with me more than the monster, the melting embrace, the detective, who was somehow faceless throughout the entire ordeal. I don't actually know what happened in that room. All I have is that dream, burned into my memory. I asked Mr. L once if I could call him, the detective, and ask him about the photo. And he told me to leave well enough alone if I wanted to sleep in peace. So, I haven't asked. Now you understand why I didn't want to follow the grandpa story. nothing really happened to me, you know? Like, maybe it almost did. Or maybe I'm just paranoid. Or maybe I'm having stress-induced nightmare visions. But I know I'm not crazy. Not unless the entire building is crazy, which I definitely don't agree with. But I don't have to explain myself to you, do I? Because you've been through it too. You know how real it all is. You know how weird it's gotten in Toronto. How dangerous it's become. You know just as well as I do. I mean, as we do.
You're listening to Hainai by Motsi Dapul.
Hey everyone, it's Motsi, creator and showrunner of the Hainai podcast. Hainai is a podcast produced by Motsi Dapul, Yoy Halago, and Alyssa Jimenez, and licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. This episode was co-produced by Jesse Goodsell and written and directed by Motsi Dapul. The role of DJ in the Dark Caller, Maren, was played by Alex Nursall. If you'd like to chat with other listeners when this episode goes live, we do a live premiere every Sunday at 9 p.m. ET or Toronto time on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/HainaiPod. To help support the production of Hainai, you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/HainaiPod. You'll get to be part of our early access program, where we release episodes 3 days early on Thursday at 9 p.m. ET or Toronto time. You can also get bonus video, audio, art, and much more. Speaking of Patreon, we'd love to give a special shout out to the following patrons for all their amazing support: Petra, Emily Cole, Maha, Sai B.A., Prinks Variety, Didi Chenak, Chandra, Tony Baloney, Nay, Boyo, Phoenix Luna, Kate Jordan, Sabine, Ben, Jess No, Nanette Dapul, Mika, Matthew Upton, Anna, Sooks, Becca Terrier, Melissa, Flying Cabbage, Faye Fungi, Pablo Neurotic, Oster Kim, Megan, Jesse Goodsell, Malaya Light, and Victoria Goodwin. Thank you for all your support. If you subscribe at the ATET tier or the $10 tier and above, you get bonus episodes, bonus content, the full B-sides, and you get your name shouted out on every episode in the credits, just like our wonderful supporters here. If you can't subscribe monthly, you have the option to buy us a milk tea on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/HainaiPod. Our ad-free Hainai album, which has our official music and full episodes from Act 1 and 2, is also available for both patrons and to purchase on our coffee shop. Check out our website, HainaiPod.com, for more info, and follow us on all our socials, on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky, and even our YouTube posts, at HainaiPod, for updates and more information, especially when we have special events. And as always, thank you, we love you, and hanggang sa muli.